So, I mean, for centuries, really, we've relied on this deeply comforting idea, this very predictable clockwork universe.
Right, the dead mechanical machine model.
Exactly. You look up at the night sky, you expect mechanical reliability, you look through a telescope, you measure the expansion of the universe, and the math is just supposed to neatly add up.
Right, it's supposed to be a linear equation.
But looking at the source notes for this deep dive, especially the James Webb Space Telescope data that came out this week, it's the dashboard of our reality is visibly glitching.
It's completely glitching. It is the absolute definition of a paradigm in crisis.
Yeah, because our best maps and our most expensive instruments are suddenly just, well, they're disagreeing with themselves.
They are. When you look at the raw data from the James Webb Telescope, we are seeing things that physically break that standard model of a linear mechanical explosion playing out over time.
I mean, the telescope is looking back over 13 billion years, right?
Yeah.
Near the dawn of the universe.
Exactly. And it is finding galaxies that are fully mature, massive, and highly organized.
Which shouldn't be there.
They absolutely shouldn't exist in the state we are observing them. According to a simple linear timeline, those galaxies should have taken billions of extra years to form.
Wow.
So the timeline itself is breaking down.
And it isn't just a matter of, like, finding old galaxies that shouldn't be there.
Yeah.
We have this massive contradiction in cosmology right now. The sources call it the Hubble tension.
Oh, the Hubble tension, yeah, which is deeply unsettling for physicists.
Because we have two different ways to measure how fast the universe is expanding.
Yeah.
And they're giving us two completely incompatible numbers.
Right. So if you measure the expansion rate using the cosmic microwave background...
Which is like the residual heat signature, right?
Yeah, exactly. The echo of the early universe. If you use that, you get a very specific speed. But if you measure the expansion using Cepheid variable stars and supernovas in our, relatively local late-stage universe...
And you get a totally different number.
You get a significantly faster speed. And both measurements are incredibly precise. Both are verified, yet they fundamentally contradict each other.
Okay, so if the instruments aren't broken and the measurements are precise, we have to look at the underlying assumption. Yeah. And I think this is the core theme jumping out of all the beyond-the-shell research this week.
It is.
Between the Hubble tension, these impossible early galaxies, and things like fast radio bursts pinging through hidden cosmic structures, the evidence suggests we aren't floating in a chaotic, dead void.
Not at all. The universe is behaving much more like an operating system.
Yes, an operating system. It seems to have rules, bandwidths, translation protocols that negotiate how information moves.
And that shift right there from mechanical void to operating system, that is vital because strangely, as our modern measurements break down the machine model, they're actually starting to mirror one of the oldest models of reality in human history.
The cosmic egg.
The cosmic egg, exactly.
Yeah. Okay, let's unpack this for a second. Because when people hear cosmic egg, they imagine a literal, primitive, hard-shelled container just like floating out there in the dark.
Right, it sounds like an archaic myth.
Yeah, so how does a mythological egg relate to a cosmic operating system, or, our physical biology?
Well, we have to move past the literal image of a giant egg in space. In these ancient frameworks, the cosmic egg was an observer safety architecture.
An observer safety architecture.
Yes. Think about the sheer volume of data in the universe. If reality at its core is made of infinite cosmic signals, infinite frequencies of light, endless radiation, vast gravitational waves...
You just drown in it.
You completely drown. If your brain processed every wavelength of the electromagnetic spectrum simultaneously, your hardware would crash.
So you're saying human consciousness acts as like a biological compression system?
It is a rate-limiting filter. It steps down infinite information so your finite biological body can actually survive experiencing it.
Oh, that makes so much sense.
Right. Just look at human vision. We only see a microscopic sliver of the electromagnetic spectrum, what we call visible light.
Right. We don't see infrared. We don't see ultraviolet, X-rays.
Exactly. The eye acts as a boundary. It takes a raw, infinite frequency and compresses it into a color you can process. Your eardrum compresses atmospheric vibration into a sound you can hear.
And we usually think of our sensory limits as a flaw, like
Yeah.
we want to be limitless, or we think we're missing out on the quote-unquote real universe.
People always say that.
But the implication here is that limit is not the enemy of reality. The limit is exactly what makes reality readable.
Yes, without the boundary filtering out the noise, there is no distinct form.
So for you listening right now, the direct takeaway is that your nervous system is functioning as a step-down transformer every single second.
Every second, it compresses the infinite so you can have a finite, survivable experience.
And so the boundary of the universe isn't just, billions of light years away at the edge of the observable cosmos.
No, the boundary is right there. It is exactly where your sensory organs turn a raw frequency into a lived moment.
Wow. If human biology acts as this incredible filter for infinite signals, what really fascinates me is that ancient cultures didn't just stop at writing philosophy about this.
They didn't. They built physical, mechanical instruments to replicate this exact filtration process.
Right. They built the cosmic egg into stone.
They engineered incredibly precise acoustic and optical instruments, but they often disguised them as temples or shrines.
But to understand how they work, we really have to look at the geometry of those limits.
You do, and we see this clearly in the research of Georgi Dotsi.
Yes, his book, The Power of Limits, he details how bounded proportion and sacred geometry act as a readable interface. But we often throw around terms like catonic solids or torus fields without actually explaining what they do.
Right, they just become buzzwords.
So what's a torus field?
Let's use the torus field as a primary example. Think of a torus field like a magnetic donut. Energy flows up through the center, wraps around the outside, and pulls back up through the bottom in this continuous self-sustaining loop.
Okay, so it's a bounded system that recycles its own energy.
Exactly. Ancient architects used these principles alongside things like the golden ratio.
Which is that mathematical proportion found everywhere in nature, right? From spiral galaxies to nautilus shells.
Right. They used these proportions to design spaces that mirrored this continuous cosmic flow.
So I want you to picture this. Imagine walking into one of these ancient, perfectly proportioned stone chambers. You stand right in the center and you clap your hands.
Okay.
The raw acoustic energy of that clap doesn't just hit a flat wall and die. Because of the geometry, the specific boundaries of the room, the sound wraps around, bouncing back to create a standing wave.
Right.
And the resonance of the sound actually reveals the invisible shape of the room.
Which is incredible. The room changes the sound, just like a curved glass lens changes the path of light. These architects understood that a signal needs a container before consciousness can interpret it.
So a sacred stone chamber is essentially a miniature cosmic egg. It's a world made small enough and bounded perfectly enough for the infinite to become audible and readable to a human being standing inside it.
That's a perfect way to put it. And what's fascinating here is that this concept of a readable boundary, it doesn't just exist in ancient stone.
No.
No, if we follow this thread, it leads us directly to the absolute bleeding edge of modern quantum mechanics.
Oh, this is where we get into black holes.
Yes, specifically the ultimate cosmic boundary, a black hole.
Okay, let's look at the physics here. Because a black hole creates a massive accounting crisis for science.
The black hole information paradox.
Right, so let's say a black hole swallows a library. Every book, every word, every single atom of ink. According to classical gravity and Einstein's general relativity, the gravitational pull is so intense that nothing escapes.
Not even light.
Right, so that library gets crushed into a singularity, and all that information is lost forever.
But quantum theory insists on a fundamental rule. The universe cannot forget.
Information cannot be permanently destroyed.
Exactly. If you burn a book, quantum mechanics says you could technically rebuild the book if you captured every single molecule of smoke and ash.
Right, the data is still there, just scrambled.
Yes. So if gravity says the library is gone forever, and quantum mechanics says the information must survive, the universe's dashboard is glitching again.
Wait, but if relativity says nothing escapes the gravity of a black hole, how does quantum theory even attempt to solve this? Wouldn't the information just get obliterated at the center?
Well, this is where we get to the breakthrough of Hawking radiation.
Okay.
And eventually, the holographic correspondence. Stephen Hawking realized that black holes aren't completely black. Quantum fluctuations near the edge cause them to slowly leak radiation over trillions of years.
And eventually, the black hole evaporates completely.
Right.
So it leaks radiation, but where is the actual data from the library? Is it in that region?
Right. That is the exact problem physicists like Kyriakos Papadomas and Suvrat Raju have been trying to solve.
Okay.
They've explored the holographic correspondence, which suggests that the event horizon of a black hole, the physical boundary layer, the point of no return, is not just an empty threshold.
What is it then?
It functions as a memory surface.
A memory surface. So it's not a trash can that shreds the data, The boundary itself is a hard drive.
Think of it exactly like a hard drive. When your hypothetical library falls into the black hole, the 3D information of those books is encoded onto the 2D surface of the event horizon.
The boundary records the data.
Yes. So while an outside observer only sees scrambled, chaotic Hawking radiation leaking out, a deeper quantum layer preserves the actual information right there on the shell of the black hole.
Okay, the implication of that is just staggering.
It really is.
It means the shell around reality, this boundary layer, is not merely a wall keeping things out or holding things in. It's the actual rule that lets reality change its form without ever forgetting itself.
Yes. The universe needs boundaries not to imprison us, but to preserve memory and maintain coherence. Without the event horizon, the black hole just breaks physics entirely. The boundary is the translation protocol.
But, I mean, how is a human being supposed to mentally process a universe made of boundaries and memory surfaces?
Yeah.
That is a wildly abstract concept.
It is abstract, yeah.
But realizing that quantum understanding of boundaries, that is exactly the moment everything clicked from this week's research. Because ancient traditions were not primitive myths.
No, they weren't.
They were written as cognitive user interfaces to help people process this exact physics.
When you strip away the dogma and look at the functional mechanics of these ancient systems, they map perfectly to this idea of boundary, flow, and translation.
They're basically providing an operating manual for the cosmic egg.
Exactly.
So let's break down the ancient Chinese 100 schools of thought. Historically, this emerged during the Warring States period, a time of immense chaos, and these philosophies were trying to figure out how to stabilize society.
Right. They had a very practical social application.
But if we look at it as a cosmic operating system, the structure is brilliant. You start with legalism. Politically, legalism was a harsh system of laws and absolute standards. But functionally, as a cosmic map, legalism is the limit layer.
It is the shell layer.
Right. It enforces stability and verification. It provides the rigid boundary.
But a system that is purely rigid, that only has walls, becomes dead machinery.
Yeah, it breaks.
If you only have a shell, the system shatters under pressure. It needs fluidity to survive.
Which brings in Taoism.
Yes.
Taoism is the flow layer.
Yeah.
It functions like the memory surface we just talked about on the black hole.
Yeah.
It's the non-coercive pattern field that keeps the system moving, adapting, and alive.
It prevents that legalist shell from turning into a dead mechanical universe.
Right. So you have the limit and you have the flow. But you still need a way to connect the two.
You need a translation layer.
And that's the third piece. Naturalism, yin-yang, and the 5 phases. That is the translation layer. It's the code that maps the massive, infinite macrocosm down to the finite human body.
It explains how a human observer can read the large cosmic order through local bodily experience.
Limit, flow, and translation.
It's a complete user interface stack, and we see the exact same functional architecture in ancient Vedic traditions from India.
Oh, right.
Ancient Vedic architecture and cosmology describe the cosmic egg through 7 realms, or lokas.
Wait, are these lokas just like mythological kingdoms up in the sky, or do they serve a mechanical function in this model?
They function as layered bandwidths.
Layered bandwidths.
Yeah, or different densities of reality happening simultaneously. Think of it like looking at a drop of pond water. With the naked eye, your standard bandwidth, it's just a drop of clear water.
Right.
But put it under a microscope, which shifts your bandwidth, and suddenly you see a chaotic, living city of microscopic organisms.
Oh, wow.
The Vedic architects were basically arguing that the universe has macroscopic and microscopic layers of reality stacked on top of each other, but our biology restricts us to experiencing just one zoom level at a time.
And they map time through this system as well, right? Not as a straight mechanical line.
Correct. They used yugas.
Which are massive, large-scale time cycles.
Right. The system doesn't just tick forward like a clock. It breathes through these massive cycles of expansion and contraction. The ancient architects were describing an immensely complex cosmic map.
And your human nervous system acts as the exact experiential threshold, where these immense cosmic frequencies get stepped down into lived perception.
Exactly.
But if the universe operates on these boundaries, layered bandwidths, and cyclical timescales, how do we know when the system is updating? Is there a way to measure the weather of this cosmic operating system so we aren't just caught off guard?
Well, this leads us into the final stack of our sources, looking at macro system dynamics, which ancient cultures tracked through astrology.
Okay, here's where it gets really interesting. Because astrology is one of those subjects that has been so diluted by modern pop culture that most people entirely lose sight of its original mechanical purpose.
Completely. We have to completely reframe this.
This is not about a generic daily horoscope in a newspaper predicting whether you'll have a good day at work or, meet a stranger on a Tuesday.
No, not at all.
In this framework, astrology is a method for tracking the system's macrodynamics. It is a way to read geopolitical energy and structural shifts in the operating system itself.
Because in the cosmic egg model, the planets do not merely act as dead, orbiting rocks in a mechanical void.
Right.
They are luminaries, and they serve functional boundary roles within the system. They represent the hands on the cosmic clock.
Okay, let's ground that for us. Give us an example of the mechanism behind those roles. Why does a planet represent a specific function?
Take Saturn, for example.
Okay.
In ancient observational systems, before telescopes, Saturn was the slowest moving visible planet in the sky. It takes roughly 29 years to complete a single orbit.
That's a long time.
Right. And because of that incredibly slow, grinding, visible pace, early astronomers associated it with time, aging, and structural limits.
So functionally, Saturn became the symbol for the enforcer of limits.
Exactly. It represents the boundary, the architecture, the shell itself.
And on the flip side, you have a planet like Mercury.
Right. Mercury moves incredibly fast, zipping around the sun in just 88 days.
So it's the opposite of Saturn.
Exactly. Because of its speed and erratic visible behavior, it was associated with communication and commerce. In the cosmic operating system, Mercury governs the translation of signals across boundaries.
It's the routing protocol.
Yes, the routing protocol, moving data from the macro level down to the finite.
So when we track these planetary movements and their geometric relationships to each other, we aren't predicting magical events. We're watching the gears of the translation layer shift.
Yes. And if we connect this to the bigger picture, especially over the past week, if we look at the collective energy, we are watching civilizations and geopolitical structures undergo immense pressure.
Oh, absolutely.
We are watching the world navigate a profound tension between the desire for infinite expansion, limitless economic growth, limitless technological reach, and the very real, necessary structural limits of our environment and society.
The boundary is pushing back against the expansion.
Exactly. And observing these planetary correspondences provides us with a clear, calm dashboard of these systemic shifts. We can track real-world behavioral changes, the friction between flow and limit, without resorting to fear-mongering.
Because the system is just updating. It is breathing out, and it is hitting a wall.
It's just mechanics.
And for you listening, this macro energy filters directly down into your personal outlook. Because your consciousness is that rate-limiting filter we've been talking about. Your personal astrological chart, your internal wiring, functions as your unique receiver.
You are a specific antenna tuned to a specific bandwidth.
So whether you are currently feeling the heavy restriction of a boundary in your own life, that Saturnian limit forcing you to restructure, or you are feeling the sudden, overwhelming rush of a new signal and new information, you have to remember the mechanics of what is happening.
Your body is doing exactly what it was designed to do.
It is stepping down the infinite friction of the cosmos into a survivable, finite experience.
That's beautifully said.
So what does this all mean? When we pull all of these beyond-the-shell research themes together, the underlying pattern is profound. We're living through a period where the map is visibly disagreeing with itself.
It really is.
The old mechanical clockwork universe model is breaking down, from the glitches in the James Webb Telescope to the Hubble tension fracturing our measurements.
But what is replacing that dead machine is not chaos.
No.
It is the realization that reality is a negotiated interface.
The holographic memory preserved on the boundary of a black hole, the Taoist flows and legalist limits, the layered bandwidths of Vedic architecture, and the acoustic resonance of an ancient stone temple.
It's all connected.
The message is identical across time and physics. Reality needs walls.
Without the shell, there is no sound. Without the limit, there is no form. The boundary is not a prison. The boundary is the prerequisite for experience.
Every ancient tradition has tried to install a language to help us understand this massive translation process, whether they called them celestial gates, element cycles, yugas, or quantum measurement protocols. They were all mapping the exact same interface.
And the most important takeaway for you listening to the synthesis is to realize your active place in that interface.
Yes.
You are not a tiny, insignificant speck floating in a random dead void. You are an active participant inside a living, proportional instrument. Your consciousness is the literal lens that focuses the infinite light of the universe into a world you can actually touch, measure, and experience.
You are the checkpoint. You are the translation layer. And that leaves us with one final lingering question to mull over as we close out this deep dive into the cosmic operating system. If the boundary of the universe is specifically designed to preserve memory, and your nervous system is the exact checkpoint that translates that infinite memory into your daily lived reality, what happens to the universe when you finally decide to change the channel?